Hey y'all, I'm here to do my mid-year check-in. This is originally known as the mid-year freakout tag, but it's been brought to my attention that that terminology and imagery associated with like the freakout is harmful. That was brought to my attention by Kat at Biblioscura. If I can find the video that she talked about it in, then I will link that in the description. But it's basically that tag, but also reworked because I watched Kayla at Books and Lala's video and she kind of reorganized the questions, and I think that the way she organized them is more suited for the kind of things that I read anyway, because I don't have any literary crushes. So without further ado, I'm going to go through those questions and check in with y'all. The first question, as was added in by Kayla, I believe, is just how is your reading going this year? And I think that it's a pretty good year for me because I recently caught back up with where I needed to be. I think I'm still like a book or two behind, but I had gotten way behind just because after I moved here, I really wasn't in the mood for reading. Like, we were just always out doing something, or, you know, getting the home set up, and I wasn't reading as much as I usually do. Also, I'm just not used to having someone else here and then reading. Whenever I was living alone before I came to, you know, I moved and was able to live with Daniel, I had built-in solo reading time, but when we started living together, it took some adjustment to feel like, oh, I can do my own thing and he can be here, because whenever he visited previously, it's like we just spent all of our time together because we had so limited time together. But now I'm back to reading. So yeah, it's been a pretty good year. I've definitely had some 5 stars, and I haven't been reading too many things that that weren't well suited to me in the first place. So I think it's been pretty good overall. The best book I've read this year. The best book I've read this year might still be West Girls by Laura Elizabeth Willett, that I read whenever I first moved here. Whenever I first got my library card, it was in the first batch of books I got from the library. It's an Australian book, and I loved that. I mean, it's just like a very intricately sculpted multi-viewpoint story, and it seems to confuse a lot of reviewers, and I just love a weird, confusing book that also is about female friendships, female frenemies, some queer relationships, or like the homosocial elements of female friendships. And it was as dark as it needed to be able to tell a story about catfishing as an ambiguous race. It's about a model who passes as some sort of Asian, but sometimes people read her as East Asian or Southeast Asian, and she just like kind of goes with it. Like, she never tells people like, yeah, I am this, but she also doesn't, she knows that people think that she's Asian and she's not, and it's about how she uses that to her advantage, but also these other friendships and all these other women, from girls to women, throughout a lifespan of women in Western Australia, mostly in the Perth area. But I also just read The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim, which I'll probably be talking about later in these questions, but I have a full review on that. So if you're interested in a female cannibalism eye-eating story, then, you know, check out my review on that. But yeah, that's another, my best horror book of the year so far. The next question is for the best sequel I've read, and I'm not a series reader historically. Like, there have been some series lately that I've been thinking about picking up. Like, I think I might like the Finley Donovan series. So I don't have a best sequel that I've read so far, but I'm going to consider it as maybe sequel I'm most likely to read. And I read Andrew Sean Greer's Less on my plane ride over here, and I liked it way more than I thought I would. And it's like about travel in a lot of ways, and I think that I could get into, I think that I will at some point read the sequel to that, whether that's this year. It seems like a good traveling book, so I might save it for the next time that I'm on a plane. Who knows? Favorite reread, also don't have an answer for this. as written, because I have not reread anything this year, or really, I never reread anything, honestly. So who knows, maybe one day I'll have an answer to that. The genre that you've been loving or reading the most of this year, and it's still gonna be horror for me. It's just, if I have to pick a genre, it's gonna be horror. However, this year I did read almost all almost all of the short list for the Stella Prize, and a lot of the long list as well. And so I think that that is, you know, I think that can be considered a genre, as kind of like a prize type of literary fiction. So I did read a good bit of that this year as well. A new release that I haven't gotten to yet, but want to. I do want to read Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, which, because it seemed like something that I was going to want to read, I also have not looked into like a synopsis. I like Paul Tremblay. I think he writes good, weird horror, and I think something that might be metafictional in some way is going to be a winner for me. So probably we'll get to that sooner rather than later. In my most anticipated release for the second half of the year, coming out very soon, that I think I want to read, is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. I read almost all of Camp Damascus, because I think I was reading it while I was like packing up to move, or like right before Daniel came to, so that we could go back together. And so I've read like 75% of it, but now it's been so long, I would have to start from scratch. But I really did like what I read of it. And so I think I'm more likely to read Bury Your Gaze fresh than go back and reread Camp Damascus. It's about a gay screenwriter who is refusing to kill off his gay characters, and something begins to haunt him about it. There's starts to see things, monsters come to attack him, something of that sort. My biggest disappointment of this year. Going back to reading the Stella Prize list, I thought that they were going to be all winners, and I thought that if a book was like said to be sapphic and full of longing, that sounds like something that I would like. But The Swift Dark Tide by Katya Ariel was just not it for me. So it's about a woman who's in a happy heterosexual relationship who starts to fall in love and have an affair with this woman. Everything is from her point of view, so it's like I just have to take everything with a grain of salt. So, and it says that her husband like fully, you know, blessed this affair, so that it wasn't cheating per se, but it's like how much they had a kid as well, so it's like how much of it just feels like what are you gonna do if you love someone and they say like, oh, I do love you and I want to be in a relationship with you, but I also want to have this affair. That seems like a hard position to be put in, where to say that your husband just was like hurt but okay with it, and then it fully absolves you of guilt, which I don't think, you know, she's asking the reader for absolution or anything, but it's just not necessarily something that I want to read. Like, I think it's maybe okay for you to write this for yourself, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I want to read it. How to read a memoir sometimes like this that doesn't feel in some way narcissistic, which I know sounds like very loaded and negative, but I just don't necessarily believe that this is something that you had to do, or that it's something that many women are too scared to do, and that you're somehow enlightened because you had an affair. I don't know. And then there's lots of water metaphors, and they go to the beach a lot. So disappointing, because I'd heard really positive things about this and it just wasn't for me. So that's how it goes. My biggest surprise of this year, I just read this week, and it's You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron. Obviously I thought the premise like sounded interesting or I wouldn't have picked it up, but because I knew it was a YA, and then the premise sounded good, but I don't usually read YA horror. People that I have similar opinions on horror with, like Sean at Storytime, had rated this really well on Goodreads, and so I gave it a shot, and I thought it was really good. Like I gave it 4 stars. You know, that doesn't really matter, but because what really matters is it was a YA horror that was definitely worth reading, was so entertaining. I felt like it could have been a little bit longer. So You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight is about this girl who is an actress at a summer camp that's kind of like the Friday the 13th summer camp, Camp Crystal Lake, and Camp Mirror Lake is what it is in this book. All hands-on, fully immersive horror experience where people buy tickets and they pretend that they're, you know, getting chased by the Mirror Lake killer rather than Jason. And she is the actress who plays the final girl. Turns out there is now a real killer that is coming to kill the fake campers at Camp Mirror Lake. And yeah, there was like a beautiful queer relationship. I loved that. I don't read YA very often, but I loved that it was like a queer relationship that was like already set in its ways. It wasn't like a timid coming out story. It just had 2 girlfriends that loved each other, and I thought that was really sweet and well done. All of the dialogue was funny and interesting, and none of it was cringy, and like that the horror and the gore was done really well. And I think this was her horror debut. Like I think she had a fantasy and maybe a dark fantasy YA before, but I would definitely be like interested to see what, you know, what other horrors she has up her sleeve, because that was surprising how good it was. Favorite new author, a debut or new to you? And this is a debut author, Monica Kim. This is her debut. So favorite author, whenever you've only read one thing, is, you know, kind of hard to say, but I did read an interview with her, and her next horror book is, I think, coming out next year, but it's about the use of like cameras, like I think like upskirt cameras that are used in Korea, and like a horror take on that, because that's a pretty, you know, specific horrific topic as is, and I've never read a story about it. So I think that sounds really interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing where she goes next, but I think I will continue to like whatever she comes out with. Favorite character of the year so far, and this would be Ji-won from The Eyes Are the Best Part. I loved that it was a young female serial killer who was eating eyeballs and had no remorse for anything she was doing, because she had been put through some pretty horrific stuff. And I just loved how her character was fully developed, that she had these beautiful relationships with her mom and her sister, and that you do get to see her thinking about why her dad might be that way. Her dad, who has like recently left the family, and she's like fully formed, and she's going out for what she wants. She's gonna get what she wants, and it's eyeballs, and it's to eat eyeballs. And it's one of those books that you just have to read to understand. And I loved the other characters as well. Even the characters that you hated were done really well. So that's a favorite character type of book. The next question is for a book that made you cry. And no book has made me actually cry this year, I don't believe. But I picked out 2 that did make me emotional in some way, and that's The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Keist and American Rapture by CJ Lead, which hasn't come out yet, but I just finished the arc of recently. The Haunting of Velkwood is about a neighborhood that is stuck in time in like a ghost loop, but these girls that escaped from it are able to go back and visit and kind of see the ghosts there still. It's about female relationships and the ways that those can have gone wrong over time, and miscommunications. It really covers a lot of different types of friendships and the ways that tensions can arise, that there's these, you know, two main girls that have this relationship, or had this relationship, but then there's also these other characters that maybe they feel like they didn't do right by years ago, as well as their family members. And so it's like a well done ghost story and very eerie. The way that the city is set up is like, it is, no one else can visit it. And so like, yes, it's separated from time and space and normal things because of that, but it's also eerie. It seemed like it was eerie before anything even really happened, because some pretty horrific things were going on there. And then American Rapture by C.J. Lead. I think I'll do like a full review of this later, but I haven't read a book like this before where it really was able to explain what it feels like to be raised very religious and very conservative, and the way that shame and guilt can feel like a jump scare at any moment, and just the softness that it showed for those characters. They were put in this position where they believed things about the world, they believed things about themselves and others that just weren't true, and it wastes so much time and energy, and it really talks about how long it takes to unpack all of that. And so, I mean, that was just a really beautiful, it was just really beautiful to read. In the story, it's a Catholic home, but pretty similar in terms of sexual shame and guilt in the Southern Baptist Church where I grew up. So that one was kind of emotional to even think about now. So even though it wasn't like my favorite book that I read for other reasons, how it dealt with that made it worthwhile for me. The next one is a book that made you happy, and this kind of an odd answer, but mine is Black Paradox by Junji Ito, which is about not a suicide cult, but about a group of people who have decided to commit suicide and they want to do it together. And this was just, it made me so happy because it was so funny and so campy, and so it was just like the best Junji Ito I've read. And he was like so on it in terms of like imagery and the politics of it. And then, yeah, it was just I was like laughing out loud. Like it was good. I was gleeful at how much I was enjoying it. So kind of a weird thing to pick as your book that made you happy, but yeah. And we're on to the most beautiful book that you've bought so far this year. And I just got these two books at the op shop this week. One is Magic in Medieval Manuscripts by Sophie Page, which is just, I mean, maybe the cover isn't the most beautiful, but it does like have all of these photographs of manuscripts within. And then I got The Seven Moons of Mali Alameda by Shehan Karun Tilaka. And I think that that is just a stunning cover. I was so excited I got like more books at the op shop this week than I have the whole time I've lived here. And I'm just like so excited to get to them. And I'm so excited to finally have bookshelves now so that I can put books up, because the first couple months were a little bit touch and go. And the next question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And one that I'm getting to very soon is Poking Holes by Juan Valencia, and I'm reading this during Jello July, but I need to read it because I started it last year and it was in a box to come to Australia for months, and then after I got here I didn't pick it right back up, but I'm excited that I get to finish it in July, so this month, as well as The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco is going to get read this year because I'm recording an episode on it for the podcast. No cartridge, it's always linked down below. I have a podcast on video games, but we do a series as well on a video game with a book, and so we're doing The Name of the Rose with Pentiment, which is very inspired by this, as in like there's a bibliography for the game Pentiment, which I think is incredible, and this is listed. And I think my medieval manuscript book will do me well for preparing for that episode as well. I can't remember if this one was added by Kayla as well, but the next question is a favorite video or post you've done so far this year. And I think for me, I really just got back into posting regularly, and so I don't have too many to pick from, but probably my Brat recommendations, just because it's one of those things that, well, now Brat's very popular, which is awesome, but not something that I think a lot of people would think to do. Like, I don't know how much crossover there was with the Charlie fandom before Brat came out and BookTube. And so I don't know, I think it's fun. And then it's kind of the type of thing that I would like to make more of. I think it would be cool to make some more videos that are book recommendations with the themes of an album, or a reading vlog based off of an album, stuff like that. Like, I mean, how cool would a Chapel Run one be? I would at least like to do the makeup look for it, if nothing else. And then the last question is for favorite book community members. I have to say my friends, because they really do make the best content, is, you know, Bert and Sean at the Storytime are the kindest people. I love watching their vlogs. You kind of get a lot of bang for your buck when you watch their videos, because they both have different taste in books, and so you get to see a lot of different things on there, as well as Kat at Biblio Obscura always has like really thoughtful approaches to books, and is also just like a super kind human. And yeah, probably Kayla at Books and Lala. I watch a lot of, like, I think her vlogs are very inspiring. The themed vlogs, that's a kind of a level to aspire to. So we'll see if we can get to that. But yep, that's it for this tag today. And tell me what your most disappointing books of the year are as well. Because even if I want to read them, I'll read them anyway, but I like to know what people are saying. But yeah, I'll talk to y'all again soon. Bye.